We have made it through the college football offseason, and there are games on the horizon. Now, you can see them on the schedule. They are coming, which means it's time to hammer out some predictions. I'm not necessarily in one episode. I'm going to tell you who's going to win each Power 4 conference, who's going to make the college football playoff, who's going to win the Heisman Trophy, who's going to get fired first, all of those things. It's prediction week. But I'm going to start with who are going to win the group of 5 conferences in 2024. One of these 5 schools is going to get the opportunity to face probably a Goliath in the college football world in December. Because for the first time, really ever, somebody from that group has the opportunity to win the national championship on the field, in theory, hypothetically. Like, I don't know that we'll ever see that. But the way the system had been set up before 2021 was essentially that you don't have that chance. And the only reason Cincinnati ever had that chance was because they were really good the year before. So they started the season ranked really highly. They played Notre Dame on the road, and they went undefeated. They didn't have all of those things going for them. Cincinnati doesn't ever get into the college football playoff either. So for the first 145 years of college football, nobody really had that chance from the group of 5 to win the national title. I mean, you could have, but yeah. Now there's a guaranteed spot. So somebody from the group of 5 is going to have an on-the-field chance to control their own destiny. And I think that's a cool thing. So we're going to go through the group of 5 champions that I am predicting. These are the teams that I predict and their records that will win group of 5 conferences. I'll start with the Mid-American Conference because I think the MAC is the least likely to have a representative in the college football playoff. 1, because the parity's pretty high, and then 2, the schedules for some of the teams that would be the likeliest contenders to compete for that spot are littered with bye games, are littered with games where you go to a Power 4 and not just, a Power 4 school, where you go to a blue blood and get your tail whipped in exchange for $1.8 million and the ability to have a softball team. So I picked Toledo to win the MAC. And I think Toledo's going to go 10-3. Now, Toledo has, of the Mid-American Conference contenders, they have one of the more friendly schedules where their bye game is at Mississippi State. So not completely unwinnable, but just not likely. And then their conference schedule, they play Miami, who is the overwhelming favorite to win the Mid-American Conference. And I'm going to say Miami probably wins the regular season title, and Toledo and Miami play each other in the MAC championship game, is how I am going to view it. And I'll tell you, by the way, I should have probably this used to be a lot easier when you were just going off divisions, right? Like you could say, okay, this team from this division is head and shoulders above everybody else. And you could pit like, hey, there might be a challenge. And now you got to go like conference by it's tough. So I'll say Toledo wins the Mid-American Conference championship game, goes 10-3, probably loses their head coach in the process. But I think they are the least likely to have a representative in the college football playoff. Then I think it gets interesting. It gets difficult based on record, and maybe not even record as much as who did what against who. So I put Boise State as the Mountain West Conference champion. I think they have the best offensive player and the best defensive player in the conference, and they have it's not a horrible schedule. They do play at Oregon, and they do go to Hawaii an off week, and then at UNLV. Going through your conference is undefeated. So I picked Boise State to go 11-2. I think they'll lose on the road at Oregon. After that, the idea that they will get through the Mountain West completely unscathed is difficult. I don't know that there are many teams that I would pick to go undefeated in their conference just because it's difficult to do. So I looked at, like, okay, they're playing at UNLV in Las Vegas on a Friday night, coming off a bye. I'll say that they lose that game just randomly. So they go 11-2. How they perform against Oregon could decide whether they are in the college football playoff or not. And it's the same thing, I think, for Appalachian State, who I picked to win the Sun Belt. Appalachian State plays Clemson early in the season. And then they also play Liberty in a non-conference game. If they go 1-1 or 0-2 in those games, I think it depends on how they played Clemson. Did you lose 70-21? And Clemson's backup quarterback got to play for a quarter and a half, then you might not be viewed as really an option in the college football playoff. But I picked Appalachian State to have the same record as Boise State, 11-2, because I think they might lose. I would pick them to lose against Clemson and Liberty. And if they don't lose to Liberty, they might be 12-1, and they might be the team to be the Group of 5 representative. I don't think the Sun Belt is great in 2024. I think Texas State is pretty good. And again, this is all relative to each other, right? Like Texas State is going to be good for the Sun Belt. Texas State might be 9-3, 10-2. But Appalachian State should be 10-2, 11-1, depending on what goes against Liberty on paper in mid-August. But I think this Sun Belt is Appalachian State's to lose, and that's going to be up to them. And then finally, in this like kind of mid-tier, I believe more often than not that the winner of the American is going to be that Group of 5 representative. I think Memphis wins the American and goes 11-2. But just like Boise State with their game against Oregon, and just like Appalachian State with their game against Clemson, Memphis has a game at Florida State early in the season. How do you fare against Florida State? Because like Boise State, I think to say that Memphis goes unscathed through the American probably isn't realistic. So let's give them a loss to Florida State. Will they lose somewhere else in that schedule? Whether it's on Thanksgiving at Tulane, might be at South Florida on a Friday night, coming off a bye. There are a couple of spots where you could say, like, okay, this at UTSA, Memphis got a raw deal a little bit in conference where the three teams that you can view as below them, Tulane, UTSA, South Florida, you play them all on the road, and also you play at Florida State. So those are difficult road games. The chances of you going 3-1 in that is probably not high. Can you go 2-2 and then win the conference championship? If you do, it boils down to, I think, the discussion of how did they do against Florida State? How did Appalachian State do against Clemson? How did Boise State do against Oregon? That could be the deciding factor of who makes college football playoff. If, and only if, Liberty doesn't go 13-0, which I think Liberty's going to go 13-0. They have a very, very, very not good schedule. Their non-conference is Campbell, FCS, at New Mexico State, UTEP, East Carolina, at Appalachian State. They got Florida International, Kennesaw State, Jacksonville State, Middle Tennessee State, Western Kentucky, Sam Houston State. It's not good. If Liberty doesn't make the college football playoff, Liberty only has Liberty to blame. They should theoretically go 13-0. They have the best Group of 5 player in America in Caden Salter. they should go 13-0. And even if they go 13-0, I take that back. If they're 13-0, I think they are the lock to be the group of 5 representative in the college football playoff. Now, I don't think they'll be the best group of 5 team, but 13-0, it's going to be really difficult to argue if they beat Appalachian State and Liberty's 12-1 and Appalachian State's 12, or Liberty loses to somebody else and they're both 12-1, Appalachian State wins that debate. But if they beat Appalachian State and lose to somebody and they're both 12-1, Appalachian State doesn't have a leg to stand on. Like, head-to-head matters, right? So unless somebody else is a one-loss team and that Boise State lost to Oregon or App State lost to Clemson or Memphis lost to Florida State, I don't see how you can make up this team's undefeated, this team's got 2 losses, but this 2-loss team we think is definitively better than this undefeated team. I don't think that argument is going to be made all that heartily in year 1 of the college football playoff, expanded college football playoff. I just don't think you'll see it. And I think Liberty gets just trounced probably by Texas. And we have the discussion of, okay, should there be a guaranteed spot? Should there be a sliding scale? Should we view somebody who's 11-2 as a better team than somebody who's 13-0? And we'll have all those discussions in December. But for right now, I would project Liberty to go 13-0. And if they don't, they've only got themselves to blame. So I think 13-0 gets you into the college football playoff pretty easily if everybody else has multiple losses. But I'm just a dude in a spare bedroom in my house. Crazier things have happened than Liberty not going undefeated. Want to know what you think about my projections? Comment in the box down below. Let me know. Do you think somebody else is going to win the Sun Belt? Do I have Conference USA completely pegged wrong? Is Liberty's schedule better than I think it is? Let me know what you think. Let's have that conversation. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. Here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. And hit the thumbs up if you like the video. It goes a long way in helping get in front of more college football fans, and that's always a good thing. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily